Welcome back. Before we move on to questions, Tarunya is going to share some exciting news for a couple of moments about a new venture she is leading. Tarunya, back to you.
Okay, so as Dr. Rice just alluded to it, I think this is a real kind of testament to collaborative working and what we've sort of managed to perhaps put some baby steps to sort of get this in place. And there's a long way to go, is obviously what I want to start by saying. So, we just as a little bit of a background, because as you know, these things sort of don't often happen sort of, overnight. So these are things which have sort of been perhaps are happening behind the scenes for several months. So I just thought to kind of bring it to update you on this. So this is what we describe as the NHS England's Rare Diseases Collaborative Network. So this is something which has been in place for rare diseases now under the umbrella of NHS England, soon Department of Health, for a few years now. So it's perhaps in its sixth to the seventh year. So some of you who have friends, family who had other rare diseases, not necessarily neurological diseases, might have heard of some of their clinics being sort of under this umbrella. So some of us who look after patients with neurosarcoidosis and some other colleagues who look after people with neuroinflammatory conditions, not necessarily neurosarcoid by itself, came together perhaps now about 2 years ago, a little more than that, uh, perhaps with the motive that we really need to sort of be looking after people with neurosarcoidosis in a slightly sort of networked fashion or in a collaborative way that's perhaps in the best interest of not only patients, but also for all the doctors and also the research community out there. So what I'm really excited to share with you is obviously in December 2024, we got sort of approved by NHS England for the status as a network, which I will just come to you in a minute. So again, I don't need to sort of tell you this. You've just been hearing neurosarcoid is a rare condition. And really, it's an orphan disease. So it essentially means that there are not many people with this particular condition diagnosed on a yearly basis. And there are no clinical guidelines. So what we all find as clinicians, and also what you find as a patient community, and what is generally sort of out there is very much expert views on how treatments are given to patients and how people are managed. Now, in any other scenario, this would essentially be perhaps not described as being scientifically based, because obviously expert opinions can't often guide practice. So we just need to make sure that actually all of us looking after patients with sarcoidosis have got a contribution to those contribution to how people should be managed. So some of us manage people differently from others, and it's also about sharing information across different centers. Now, there are a few regional centres in the UK, so some of you might belong to some of the larger centres, some of you perhaps sort of more rurally based, being looked after by smaller centres. And what we really found a few years ago was that although there was large volumes of people being sort of looked after at regional centres, the referral pathways were not really consistent. So some patients would have access to some of our clinics, some patients wouldn't. And what that essentially means is there are some centres which then have a vast majority of patients. And as you might recognize, the NHS is quite cash strapped. It's very sort of underfunded in a number of different ways. And thereby, I don't think patients really get a good deal. So people waiting a long time for appointments, people waiting a long time to actually get a solution to their problems, and some of it basically done in a fairly half-hearted way because there isn't the space and the time to do it. So what we decided was obviously that something needs to change in the way we do this. And also what we want to do is to basically start perhaps that multidisciplinary coordination with some of our colleagues. So although this is largely for neurosarcoidosis, some of us already had conversations with our respiratory, cardiology, rheumatology, renal, and all the other specialties, ophthalmology colleagues behind the scenes, but we wanted to sort of do this in a proper networked fashion so that we are talking to people about their whole, talking to each other about their whole sarcoidosis rather than essentially piecemeal. We also wanted to answer, Dr. Rice has already alluded to this, to answer questions in a collaborative fashion. So a lot of us look after patients with sarcoidosis in a clinical fashion, but obviously we need some questions answering for the future so that we continue to advance treatments within sarcoidosis as well. And most importantly, I think it's also to be a network supported by a sort of group of clinicians with a similar interest who really want to make lives of people with sarcoidosis better and to avoid silo working. So the Rare Diseases Collaborative Network essentially consists of 4 lead sites now within the UK. So when I say 4 lead sites, the principal aim of this network is essentially to increase the expertise for clinicians who don't look after a large volume of patients as well. So what I do not mean is obviously these 4 centers looking after all the patients in the UK. That cannot happen. As you know, a lot of you travel several 100 miles to come to clinics such as ours, but really it's just making sure that local sort of neurologists with an interest in neuroinflammatory conditions are almost sort of develop that expertise and interest by having that sort of experience sort of shared within that particular network, but also to make sure that they actually have a backup. So we all are able to then discuss patients sort of in a collaborative fashion. And this was awarded to us, so you would find that on the NHS England's website. So that's the details of it, and also details of a number of other RDCN networks which are currently present within that. So the principal aims and objectives is obviously having an MDT and advisory support. So I'm really pleased to share that our first RDCN multidisciplinary team meeting, so this brings in together all kind of interested neurologists and also other specialities interested in attending, brings trainees and also other people who might potentially be the next generation for this particular sort of condition, looking after people with this condition, into a platform where we discuss complex cases and then also come to decisions in a collective fashion on patients. We also have neuroradiology support. We also have radiology support for general radiology for the whole body, and also obviously colleagues from other specialties who have also kindly going to give up their time to attend this MDT on a monthly fashion. We do, as I've said, we want to sincerely develop clinical guidelines. So the Association of British Neurologists is our highest endorsing body within the UK. So we've already started to make some headway with obviously getting their approval to endorse a UK-led neurosarcoidosis guidelines, again, very much to do with some of the diagnostic and treatment pathways, which Dr. Rice has just alluded to. Then we have some research collaborations. So obviously this is, again, a very early stage collaboration. So we recently have a study which has been launched as a part of the collaborative network, which is looking at epidemiology, phenotype, and treatment-related outcomes in patients with neurosarcoidosis. So this is currently underway. So we have a UK neurosarcoidosis fellow who's currently in the process of collecting sort of information across different centers. And what we hope to do perhaps in the forthcoming years is essentially have very well phenotyped epidemiology information available on a database to which patients can be added, and where we can actually draw upon sort of information from that to kind of guide our experience and future guidelines, for example. Now, what is a very empty space within neurosarcoidosis is essentially clinical trials of treatment. So patients often ask us, what's the best treatment to have? And very often that's guided, again, as I say, by expert guidance, which is great because more people you see, more you know how treatments work. But what we need is a scientific way of measuring these treatments, and essentially the clinical trials, which I'm hoping the Rare Diseases Collaborative Network will be able to come together to submit grant applications and succeed in developing, will be able to do so. So very important, obviously, for patient and public involvement, it really would love to hear whether you want to obviously shape our future research or taking part in them. I mean, SarcoidosisUK I'd like to really spend a minute expressing our gratitude to Sarcoidosis UK, who've been really key and our collaborator in submitting our application to NHS England, very readily providing their support and also a platform. So very grateful to the team who helped us to sort of succeed with the application. But also all my colleagues out here, so Dr. Rice being very humble in sort of putting, I mean, it's certainly not a one-man show, this. So Dr. Rice, Dr. Fernandez and Dr. Vicky Curry Singh from Brompton, all neurologists you might actually know, have all been key in submitting and the success of this application, and also all our sort of patients who perhaps pretty much driven sort of this behind the scenes and making us want to kind of look at things a little bit differently. So that's an email address. So please make a note of that. I'll also put it on the chat. This will also be available. I'm sure Graham and colleagues at Sarcoidosis UK will share this via their sort of information portals. So if you want to obviously contribute in any way, not only to the what you'd like to see from the RDCN, but also obviously from any research and whether you'd like to shape them, please do contact me on that. And then we can obviously take it forwards from there, depending on where you want to sort of contribute to. So I wanted to just stop there. So obviously this would also be part of the Q&A. So please do ask me any questions. We'll also hopefully get a platform to share future developments of the RDCN via Sarcoidosis UK in the near-term future. We'll also disseminate this via some of our other social media platforms, which we have available, so that people do know that, we are working hard to make sure that actually care of neurosarcoid is actually harmonized across the UK, and that people don't have to suffer because of geographical disparity and also disparity reaching the right clinicians. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much there. I've got two questions to start on the RDCN, then we'll come back on to neurosarcoidosis. The first question is, obviously, with the demise of NHS England and the move into the Department of Health, do you have relationships with Scotland as well here, or is this very much an England activity?
Yeah, so really great question, Archie Graham. So I think the RDCN multidisciplinary meeting has already been sort of circulated to colleagues in other devolved nations as well. So they would have the opportunity to participate in it. And we already have very good working relationship with clinicians in Scotland, in Wales, and Northern Ireland, actually, as not only because of sarcoidosis, but because of the other inflammatory conditions we look after. I know that some of Dr. Rice's biobank research is also involved Northern colleagues and will involve that as well. So very much sort of, I think that's pretty much forefront. NHS England, because a lot of our patients come from England, but the network is for everyone else.
And the second question related to that, obviously, you're very much focused on neurosarcoidosis. Is the network expanding into other areas of sarcoidosis, or is there a similar group looking into other types of the disease?
So so as I said, I mean, in terms of rare diseases or orphan diseases, NHS England obviously chose to kind of represent neurosarcoid in that sort of front. What we want to make sure, because these things, Graham, also involve kind of manpower, working hours, and things such as that. What we want to do is to maximize the potential of a MDT such as this. So we already have a number of colleagues from large sort of other sarcoidosis centers who've already signed up to the MDT, who will hopefully make sort of time to attend the MDT so that complex patients are discussed. So I'm sure colleagues who lead on respiratory, for example, at other centers would, and also our centers would probably perhaps come together in an MDT in a very similar fashion. But I think it's nice to sort of start with somewhere and hopefully sort of build on that.